Well, I hate my fucking job. Well, I hate my fucking job. Oh, oh, oh. You know I hate my fucking job. Well, I hate my fucking job. Oh, oh, oh.
Hey there, all you ninnies, twits, dingbats, and social reprobates. This is Reverend Norm welcoming you to another electrifying, stimulating, and totally off-the-wall sensational episode of Killed by Desk, the only show that answers the question that no one's asking, what does misfit musicians, weirdo artists, and oddball scenester mainstays do to make a living? Prepare to have your minds completely and totally blown for the details you never thought you'd want to know. The ups, the downs, the conference calls gone wrong, the coworker questions, the dress codes, and what they've learned and what they wish they hadn't, and if they're at all happy where they are and what they've become. From selling out to doubling down, let's talk punk rock business and what happens when the two get all mixed up. Here's your host, Bill Florio.
Hey, this is Bill. Charlie, you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
How about Dave?
I'm here. Hey, everyone.
All right. So this is episode 2, and I just want to talk a little bit about our musical background. So I was in Bug Out.
You would be nowhere if it wasn't for me.
That's right. I would be nowhere if it wasn't for Charlie. I happened to walk into a Bug Out Society rehearsal, and they're like, hey, we've been looking for you, but you put a fake phone number. You gave me a fake phone number, but we want you to be in our band.
That's not what happened. You walked in, and I said, you want to play bass?
And I said, yeah. So I was in Bug Out Society with Charlie. I was in Little Seizures with Dave. Bug Out Society from like 90 to 96. Little Seizures was from like 2011 to 2013.
The Shemps came before that. So what was the...
I'll give you the chronological order. I was in Bug Out Society. I was in the Shemps. I was in Lost Locker Combo, Little Seizures. I was in the LLC, which was the band for the Gregg Gethard show. I should say that at the end, because that's going to be an intro, but I'll throw that in at the end.
Was that stand for Limited Liability Corporation?
No, there's another band called LLC that I think is related to like Boys to Men or something. Anyway, that's not important.
That's ABC, another bad creation.
Wait. I also did a bunch of other stuff. I did Greedy Bastard Fanzine. I wrote for Maximum Rock and Roll, and I heckle people a lot.
So you win the punk points to the point where, Bill, I've known you since I was, I think, 13 or 14, and I always knew him as the guy from Greedy Bastard. So, you know, he had his fanzine. Kids, it was like a blog, but it was printed. And he would always hand them out at shows and everything. And
it was a quarter. I did not hand them out. You had to pay for it.
I don't think I ever paid for one.
You charged me 50 cents.
I'd always heard about Bug Out Society, but I'd never actually seen you guys play. I didn't see you play until after you were in the Shemps when you guys did the reunion shows. But you would tell stories. But then when I saw the Shemps, I was really surprised because I was like, oh my God, Bill actually plays music. He plays bass. He's pretty good at it. And this band is awesome. And I remember wanting to join the Shemps and trying to get in there real bad, especially when Sue left. And then instead you were like, well, you want to join Lost Locker Combo. So I think I went to 4 practices or whatever because I was
That's right.
the biggest flake in the world. I had a band that had broken up called The Repercussions, and we were kind of playing a lot of shows out on Long Island.
Long Island sucks.
Long Island does suck. And then I joined Lost Locker Combo, and I left before you guys ever played a show. And I remember we were doing Evolution Revolution by Lancelot Link, and that was like the thing that like got me. I was like, I want to cover this song. And then the Shemps kind of fell apart, and we started the Heart Punchers, which became Little Seizures, and I played guitar, and we went through a bunch of lineups with that. And at the same time, I was in a band called The Mess Around that played a bunch of shows in New York for a long time, and it was fun to...
Drug Front Records.
Exactly. So that's actually how I met my wife. Both of us put out records on the same label, run by our friend Dean. So yeah.
All right, Charlie, what about you?
I'm the founder and lead singer of Bug Out Society. Enough said.
Was there anything special about Bug Out Society?
Funniest band in New York City.
All right. I forgot what one band I was in. I was in a band called the LLC.
Oh, God, another.
That was the house band for the Gregg Gethard show. Gregg Gethard is today's guest. So, I was in Kung Fu Monkeys as well. I forgot about that.
So where's this going to be shown, on public access?
Probably much, much, much worse. But Chris actually was a fan of the band I was in, Kung Fu Monkeys, and he asked us to be part of his show. It ended up going on for 9 years. I actually ended up getting paid for it. It actually became somewhat of a part-time job.
Are we getting paid for this?
I don't think so. I always assume I'm going to lose money on everything.
What about Greedy Bastard? Those quarters must have piled up.
Definitely not. Issue 13. I think I still got about 200 left. But
Termites
anyway,
didn't get them?
Chris Gethard is our guest today. Chris Gethard started out as an improv comedian. He became a stand-up comedian. He's also an actor. He's been in multiple movies. He's had his own show. He's had his own HBO special. He has his own podcast called Beautiful Stories from Anonymous People.
And apparently he's from New Jersey.
Very apparently he's from New Jersey.
Can I say I was most excited to ask him about Weird New Jersey, which is probably going to appeal to no one listening to this podcast, but it was one of those questions that I had saved up for him for years since I saw him talk about it. So really excited about everybody hearing about that magazine.
Chris was like, he kind of came up in the New Jersey punk rock scene. He worked for a fanzine. That was his first job. So it's kind of interesting how his, I think, Dave, what you're saying, his life is his art. It doesn't necessarily have two lives. I think his outlook is he is the punk rock comedian, actor, podcaster, etc.
That's going to be one of the, I know we're only on episode 2 here, but I think that's going to be one of the deviations from what we normally do here, where there's such a big separation between someone's punk rock past and present and what they do to make money. And Chris has really managed to figure out how to do both of those things. Although, I mean, I think even he struggles with that. So I think, for someone who really wants to see what it's like to follow your dreams at all costs, I mean, I think Chris really kind of covered some of the ups and downs of that really well, which is what I loved about this interview.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I worked with Chris on the show. Like, he could do any job. He's very capable. He's a good leader. He's very organized. And he's very thoughtful. So I think anyone can get something out of Chris.
And the stories from his agents are the best.
Yes. Chris Gethard. So we always start this with you introducing yourself to say, like, my great aunt who has no idea who you are and what you do for a living. Could you do that for us?
Sure. I mean, I guess I would say to your great aunt that I think the broad umbrella is that I'm a comedian. I think that's fair to say. If you know me, it's probably from one of three things. It's either an old TV show I did called The Chris Gethard Show, or my podcast, Beautiful Anonymous, or I had a special on HBO called Career Suicide. And then I've also written 3 books and been on TV as a low-level character actor. So I've done a bunch of stuff all kind of within the comedy realm. Now I'm here doing this. And like many things that I've done with Bill Florio over the years.
Talk about career suicide.
What?
Talk about career suicide.
Okay. I was just going to say, though, I don't know what this is. I don't know.
I could tell you it's career suicide, that's for sure.
Everything with Bill. He asked me to do this. I didn't quite understand, but I'm like, of course, anything for Bill. And then the next thing I know, I get a text from my brother that's like, Bill Florio just talked to me. I'm like, what is this? Doing this research. So yeah, career suicide was...
No, I meant doing this podcast is career suicide is what I meant.
Oh, okay. Got it. I didn't understand it initially.
Most people don't understand me. It's okay.
That's fair.
I think so I did do a bunch of research. I did talk to your brother. You didn't, tell me exactly who I should talk to. Here's a quote I got from a coworker of yours, or, someone you worked with. He said, Chris insisted that every show have a band play. This is about the Chris Gethard show, right? Chris insisted every show have a band play. Every TV executive said this was ratings poison. Chris refused to move forward in any way without it. I always thought the show was better edited. He always had to do it live. Why are we doing this to ourselves?
Wait, someone who worked for the show said they like the edited versions better than the live versions?
I question this person's taste.
Yeah, I mean, if they had expressed that to me, if this person was at all high up in the chain and they had expressed that to me, I would have demoted them, if not fired them. The live show was the heart and soul of things. That clearly refers to the cable years. Like, public access was proof that live was better for us. And on cable, maybe it didn't always work, but that was because of how hard the executives were fighting us, because everything we did was, in their view, sort of insane and crazy. That's just because I look back on it and they bought our show, and everybody we ever talked to, both networks who bought our show, even some of the ones who didn't, Comedy Central with the pilot, they wanted to buy it because they knew it was cool and they knew it had a cult following. Then they immediately wanted to change all the things that got us that status. So live was better. As for the music, yeah, I fought tooth and nail for it. I was told that music does not work on television anymore, that it hasn't for years. The thing that was brought up to me many times was apparently on the Colbert Report, they once had Paul McCartney on, and his interview was good. And then as soon as he started playing music, the ratings tanked. And I believe I was told it was like some of the lowest ratings of the entire run of the Colbert Report. So people would be like, if Paul McCartney can't bring it on the Colbert Report, which it was a hot show, how are you going to have how's Downtown Boys going to get ratings on your little show on Fusion? But I think what they never understood was that music was, in my mind, pretty intrinsically tied to what we were doing. I think our show in many ways had a lot more in common with how musicians kind of approach their careers than a lot of comedians approach their careers. And also, when you look back at our public access days, when no one was enjoying the show, the musicians were the ones who stuck by us way more than comedians or comedy fans. It was musicians and music fans that lifted the show up, and I think kind of turned it into what it is, or what it was, rather. So yeah, that's my opinions on all that. And whoever that person is crazy if they think the edited version was better. They're nuts. But the music, it was also rough with the music because they made us do it at the end. And I would always say the last act of the show should just be music. And they always fought that. And on True TV, that sometimes means there'd be like 45 seconds of music. And we just try to get really well shot YouTube clips for a lot of these bands that deserved it. But it was very frustrating. These people didn't get it.
Well, that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of, right? Like, why do you feel this way? I mean, obviously there's a personal connection, but what's the influence that the music has had on you over the years, and how has it affected your work?
Well, I mean, I owe a ton to the fact that my older brother always knew what was cool. My older brother was listening to WFMU when he was in like 4th grade. He was listening to the Ramones when he was in like 6th grade. And with comedy, he knew about David Letterman when he was way too young, and Andy Kaufman, and everything just kind of rolled downhill to me because of my brother. And everything he was finding was definitely eclectic. And between the music and WFMU, so much of it was people doing it themselves. And I remember going to my first show, and it was in a church basement, and it was kids who were only 4 or 5 years older than me tops. And it was eye-opening. I was in 8th grade. I think it was the summer after 8th grade. And I saw a few local bands. Then I got into comedy, and I started at a theater called UCB. And when I first started there, it felt so much like how music had felt to me in high school. I was a sophomore in college. I showed up, and it was like, it just felt like a bare bones sawdust on the floor place that some people had built themselves. And a lot of the people there were connected with the punk scene. John Ross Bowie from Egghead helped run the place. I had loved his band. MC Chris and I took levels 1, 2, and 3 together and didn't know each other, but we'd do our class shows, and Dirt Bike Annie would all show up to support him. And Dynamo, who did tons of art for a lot of the pop punk scene in New York, was a big performer at UCB. So connected there. But then, UCB kind of got more successful, more corporate along the way, and just outgrew it. And then in 2010, I booked a part on a sitcom, and the sitcom flamed out really bad. And it was a jarring experience. And I'd been kind of following the path that all my friends had been following. And then after that, it was kind of like, well, what do I do now? I just was in this thing that bombed, and it was embarrassing. But my instincts immediately turned to, well, how did I grow up? What's the type of shit I liked? I remember so distinctly thinking, like, I was on a sitcom that failed, but I don't even like sitcoms. And there's not one sitcom that I'll sit down and watch. So why am I getting all sad about it? And I just felt this really urgent need to kind of double down on the stuff that we were doing with the Gregg Gethard show at UCB, which really reflected who I was, especially at the time. And public access presented itself. The guy who worked there, I taught him in a class, at an improv class, and he was like, your show would be great on public access. And I think a lot of people would turn their nose up at that, especially if they had just had a sitcom. I think they'd roll their eyes. But as soon as he said it, I was like, that's exactly what I need right now, because I think I went astray. And I think the type of success I found deserved to fail. And I'm kind of glad it did, because it wasn't me. And the effort to dive into public access television is 100% tied to the type of, not just the type of music I was listening to growing up, but even more so the places where I was going to watch that music, the way that I would see people setting up their own equipment, all those aspects of it felt so tied into who I was and how I wanted to behave, especially in the wake of that whole incident.
Do you ever tell that story about how you got your first improv class, how you signed up?
That was all tied to music. So when I was, it must have been 1994, my friend Nick threw a show in his backyard. It was an afternoon show. It was a barbecue. It's like, you got to bring $4 and a food item for the barbecue. I brought an Entenmann's coffee cake ring. And
You should have brought the chocolate donuts.
Thanks, Charlie. You're right. So And those are good donuts. So, strange side note, that show, my friend Nick got a call from this band that was like, hey, we're on our first tour and we need a gig that day. Can we play your barbecue? And it was Less Than Jake on their first ever tour. They played my friend's backyard, which was wild. And another band played called Thirsty, local Jersey band. And they would just throw out piles of fanzines as they played, just taking fanzines. It was the guy from Muddle, Dave Brown. So he would just like distribute fanzines. And I grabbed one out of the sky. It was Go Metric, #2. And I subscribed, emailed Mike Falloon. It was run by this band, Egghead, got their 7-inch. They were awesome. Later came to find out a lot of Jersey kids, I think, were reading Go Metric. And it was really, because it was kind of half music, half comedy. It really meant a lot to us. And the bassist of Egghead was named John Ross Bowie. So I go to sign up for my level 1 class at UCB and I send in my deposit check, my phone number, and you just sent him $25 then to reserve a spot. And this guy calls me back. He goes, hi, my name's John Ross Bowie. I'm sorry to tell you the class is sold out. And I was like, oh no, that sucks. And back then UCB, it was like the next class would have been 3 months down the line and I would have been back. College would have started back up. I'm like, oh man, I was going to do it on my summer break. I don't know if I'll be able to do it next year. That sucks. He's like, yeah, sorry, it's packed out. And I go, this is a weird question, man, but are you the same John Ross Bowie who plays a bass and sings in Egghead? And he just pauses and he's like, you know Egghead? I was like, yeah, you're one of my favorite bands. Like, you're on Mutant Pop. I've had your 7-inch, Knock Off That Evil, man, Go Metric. I'm like, I've been reading Go Metric since issue #2. It's awesome. And he just pauses and he goes, all right, so your level 1 class, it starts 2 Sundays from now at 3:00. And he just slipped me in the back door because of the punk rock connection. And I think that changed my whole life because I would have had to wait another year or so to start with comedy in New York. And it was a much more intimidating place a year or two later. And I was able to get in there when it was still just kind of like a fucked up little clubhouse with a lot of kind of strange, motivated people hanging out. So, and still, John and I are close to this day. John and I are very close to this day. And he really was a mentor to me in comedy. And it's another reason, his direct influence on me was another reason why my career, I think, always held some of the ethics of music, even though I was in comedy, because he really shepherded me through in my first, I would say, 3 years of comedy in New York City.
Did you see yourself, so was comedy, did you see that as a potential career or were you still kind of searching? How did comedy fit into what your plans were for the future, if you had any?
Well, I almost dropped out of college at Rutgers. My parents were like, just stay in school, get a degree. So I got an American Studies degree. So I was graduating with a degree that I knew was like largely useless. It was just the easiest one I could get. I realized that any American history class counted towards American Studies. So my minor was American history. And then every class in my minor counted towards my major. I kind of gamed the system. So I'd found comedy and it was the only thing that I really loved. It was the only thing that was kind of giving me any sense of self-worth, any self-esteem, but it didn't feel possible. And it wasn't like anybody I knew was getting jobs then. I'll never forget, like people would get commercials and we'd be like, how did you do that? And when Andy Daly and Donna Fineglass, they got cast as cast members on Mad TV and they shut down the theater that night and threw a party. They actually threw a party because 2 people got jobs. So that's how far away it felt. It didn't feel like a thing you could really do. And now if you know the history of the UCB theater, it's like massively influential in the past decade or so of comedy. I mean, people from The Office, Parks and Rec, everything. Donald Glover started at UCB. Everybody, Ellie Kemper, Aubrey Plaza, like Jack McBrayer, Rob Corddry, Rob Riggle, Rob Hubel, Paul Scheer, just all these people that you know from comedy. Jack McBrayer, I don't know if I said him, but everybody, let alone all the writers out there. So it blew up into this kind of success factory. But when I started, it was mostly just, this shit feels very validating and exciting and cool. And I feel like I'm in on the ground floor and I want to just chase it as hard as I can for the sake of chasing it. And then once people started getting jobs and money, at that point, I was just kind of like, I got nothing else. I don't have a degree that counts towards anything. And I've put all my time into this and I'm seeing my friends get jobs. And it took years. It took me a decade to get my first real big job. And then it flamed out. And then it was another 4 years until we got the pilot for the Chris Gethard show, Comedy Central. And then they passed on it. It was another year before Fusion picked us up. So As far as like traditional jobs in entertainment, it took me 10 years to get my first opportunity and I whiffed, another 4 years for another opportunity and I whiffed, and then another year after that. So a solid 15 years to feel like I actually got it where I wanted it. But the thing I'm so proud of is that I actually feel like if you watch the old Chris Gethard show, I would say it's the only show you're going to see that actually feels like the reason I fell in love with that earliest version of the UCB theater in New York. Like if you know UCB by the end, it just shut down in New York. It was way more corporate, way more, they were teaching off curriculums. It was much more standardized, and that's because it grew and it exploded. I get it. But if you watch the Gethard show, I would argue that that's the only thing you're going to see that ever wound up on television that actually looks and feels like what it felt like to go into that theater on 22nd Street that was a strip club before it was a theater, to go into that basement on 26th Street. I think it really is the only thing that looks and feels like what I had when I was coming up.
Well, it's funny you mentioned all the people that came out of it, and it sounds very similar to what you hear people say about like CBGBs back in the day when they're like, oh, we didn't know we were going to get famous, or we didn't know this was going to be this legendary stopping point. It was really just people doing, you know, what they wanted to do, following their passion. And it sounds like kind of like CBGBs, it got blown up in corporate, but still kind of remained kind of cruddy at the same time. It got more corporate while it didn't like look any nicer. But, you know, That's interesting.
We said the same thing at ABC No Rio, but we were right.
Well, I know it's funny you bring up CBs because about 5 or 6 years into my time there started being a lot of press saying UCB is the CBGBs of comedy. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. But then, like you said, all of a sudden it's like more about the t-shirt than the shows, right? And then it's more about, you know, who knows, maybe UCB will reopen someday at a fucking terminal in the Newark airport. I have no idea.
Having gone to UCB and seeing the shows and the performances there, like you never knew what you were in for. And that was always the really exciting part of it. I remember the first time I ever saw you went on, and I went to Seton Hall, and you went on about working on Weird New Jersey. And my freshman year of Seton Hall was 99 to 2000, right until the fire happened. And we went to all of those places. Like we would search out, like, and someone would have a car and we'd bring it in on the weekends because freshmen weren't allowed to have cars. And we would go to all of those different Weird New Jersey places. And hearing you talk about it was something so unexpected, because I was like, oh, that's a part of my history and it wasn't that long afterwards, but it was one of those things where it was interesting. And then watching someone else do improv and watching someone else do skits and whatever. I mean, it really was like a place where you could go and you had no idea what you were going to experience, but you knew it was going to be something that you were going to hopefully hold on to.
Yeah, and I also always loved back then too that if it wasn't a good night, you only spent $5 on it. I thought that was pretty cool. It, of course, down the line led to a lot of issues where they blew up and they still weren't paying their artists, and it was like, how can you still justify that? But the era you're talking about, I think you can see all of us were like, yeah, we don't give a shit about money. Get these people, put up $5 tickets so people actually show up, and maybe there'll be 25, 30 people in the crowd. That's worth it to us. And it's funny you bring up Weird New Jersey as well, because you know from being a Jersey guy that's talk about like a DIY thing that they actually made work, and an unlikely idea that they made work. I was a massive fan of Weird New Jersey from when I was about 16, and then they hired me to work for them when I was 19. Starting largely as a delivery guy, just driving around to different bookstores. And but by the end, I actually co-wrote the Weird New Jersey book, the Weird US book. I wrote the Weird New York book. So, you know, it's like another thing that's just another example that I had growing up of like, oh, you can take a really strange idea, and if you just fucking plow for it and work as hard as you can on it, you might actually make it work. I saw that with music. I saw that with WFMU. I saw that with Weird New Jersey. So I think I was kind of primed and ready in my comedy career to do it. And also as a Seton Hall guy, I don't know if you still follow their basketball team, but Miles Powell was a transcendent player to watch.
I was actually much more of a radio station guy than a sports guy, but it was really difficult when you would watch how the school recruited some of these players and the preference they gave to the players over everyone else in the school, and you know, that was made even more abundant when my freshman dorm burned down.
You lived in the dorm that burned down?
Yeah, I was in that dorm, and they literally wanted us to sleep in cots, like Revenge of the Nerds, in cots in the gym. So that really solidified my decision to leave. So I ended up leaving, but I mean, it's such a weird thing because when you have an experience that's that intense, like just the whole freshman year, but that's like, I only went there for 1 year, but I'm from Long Island originally. So going to Jersey too, and kind of learning how all of that works and like realizing that you always have to have change with you because you can't drive on the highways if you don't have change, or you have to at least pretend that you're throwing money at the toll booths, you know, like all those things are very different. So that year feels like a little bit of a weird fever dream. And when you were talking about it and like weird New Jersey, because I hadn't really thought about it since then. And then it came back and I was like, oh shit, I remember going to like Clinton Road and doing all that and like Midget Town or whatever, you know, like, and like going to all those places. And like, just part of it was the fun of like, you half the times you wouldn't even find the place, or like the place that you thought you were going to, you know, you read the map wrong because no one really, you know, you were printing out Yahoo Maps for it. It was just the fun of being able to go and like try and find these places, and that combination of like boredom and also like excitement because you're with people that you think you're going to be with for the rest of your life and hang out with, and then that doesn't happen. It was definitely an awesome experience. And I think that's what Weird New Jersey tapped into. And I do agree that it's very similar to what I loved about music, because it evokes that intense kind of reaction and sense of place. And I think that's something that kind of sticks with you, especially when you're that age.
And I always thank God I worked there, because it was just 2 guys. And they had the idea to make a magazine about haunted places in New Jersey, which if you pitched that to anyone, they'd laugh you out of the room. And they turned that thing into an actual like cult status. If you're of a certain age in New Jersey, you owned every issue. It was a part of your identity. To see people build that, just 2 guys build that from their bedrooms, it was like very eye-opening and very illustrative of the fact that things are possible.
And how did you get into that? So you just called them up, or you were just a fan that decided to see what you could do with them?
Well, I started writing them letters when I was a kid. The first issue I read was issue 8, and I loved it. And issue 9 had an abandoned mental hospital in Verona, New Jersey in it. And that's where me and my friends used to sneak into. My brother and his older friends, again, it'd be like, oh, you climb this hill to the top of the hill, and then there's abandoned mental hospital. And they'd come back and be like, yeah, we got chased out by a bunch of skinheads who were around a bonfire up there. I'd be like, this is the scariest place in the world. So then I see it on the cover of a magazine. I'm like, what the fuck? And that was at Middle Earth Comics in Montclair on Bloomfield Avenue. And it was in the window, and I ran into the store and I was like, what is this? So I started writing them letters because I just kind of knew about all that stuff in my town of West Orange. Like there's a hotel on Main Street in West Orange called the New Llewellyn Hotel. And it wasn't a real hotel anymore. It was when they shut down all the mental hospitals, when they realized like, oh, these hospitals are just fucked up. Like we can't have people like chained to the walls getting lobotomized anymore. A lot of these people who didn't have family, or who weren't, or family that didn't take them back in, the government would just put them up in this hotel. And then they'd just wander up and down Main Street in my town all day. So there was a guy who dressed as Elvis and pushed a lawnmower all over town. There was these 2 brothers named Prozac Paul and Ritalin Ronnie. And Prozac Paul, he hijacked a bus one day because he needed to get to work, and he worked at the Newark County Courthouse. And it was like, what do you just robbed a bus and made you take you to the county courthouse, you idiot? Like I shouldn't call him an idiot. He was a severely troubled person. But there was a lady called Dirty Toes who used to walk around in sandals, and she had dirty toes and would yell that she was a snake goddess. There was a guy who used to throw pennies at the ground and then chase them down and yell at them. So I was like,
these sound like characters on the Chris Gethard show, by the way. I just wanted to point that out. I don't know how formative this was for you.
Look, there's a reason I view the world through the lens that I do. But I would write letters to the Weird New Jersey guys about that. And there's, up the hill a little bit from where I grew, there was a guy who lived in the woods named Beer Can Billy. So I would write letters, and they were publishing them. And then I went to a book signing at the Montclair Book Center, and I introduced myself, and I was like, yeah, I'm Chris G. You've been publishing my stuff. And they looked at me, and I was like 16, but I was a late bloomer. I looked like I was probably like 12. And they were like, what are you talking about? We've been publishing your stuff. So I knew them from when I was...
And then they were like, hey, $4.44 an hour. We can hire this guy.
When I was 19, I emailed the guy and I was like, look, I know this might be out of line, but I'm just going to take a swing. And if you ever need help, I'll work cheap. And he wrote me back, no joke, about half an hour later and was like, you're not going to believe this, but I have a draft of an email that I've been working on to send you to ask you if you want to come work for us. So it was just from hustle. And again, similar to all the stuff that we all grew up doing, it's like contribute to the thing and you can be a part of the thing, just like music, just like everything, go get in the trenches and contribute and prove that you can be an asset. And then you get to actually, find a foothold in that world. And it's all just proven through dedication and enthusiasm and hard work.
Do you think punk rock like encouraged you to do that letter writing to things you were a fan of, or is that like you also wrote to like comic books and things like that? Right?
I did write to comic books, and a lot of it was driven by comics, but it was also fanzines. Like I said, Go Metric. I was reading, and a lot of my brother's friend Mike put out a fanzine called Marcia. My brother's friend George put out a fanzine called Life in a Bungalow. I briefly put out a couple issues of a fanzine, so I was definitely part of that culture of like, we distribute each other's stuff and write each other's letters and used to the idea. That was also back when you had a fanzine, you just put your home address, which now is unfathomable. And so, you'd get stuff to your house and it would show up. So Weird New Jersey started as a fanzine as well. It just happened to be about ghosts instead of music. So it was very much in the rhythm of it. It was a shock to me what the content was about, but it was certainly in the rhythm of the types of publications that I was picking up and reading through the music scene.
Do you think the fact that you've written several books now, is that a direct influence too? I mean, like books is another thing that talk shows don't want people on anymore for.
I got lucky that I think it was Conan who first brought me on to promote my book, but it was nice because they all liked the Chris Gethard show, but it was so strange and it was a public access show. So when I wrote that book, A Bad Idea I'm About to Do, it gave them an excuse to have me on so they could also show clips of the show and just bring me on for being kind of a strange guy who they found interesting. I think as far as how punk influenced the book, the Weird New York book grew out of my time at Weird New Jersey. But that second book, A Bad Idea I'm About to Do, I hold it very near and dear to my heart because when I was transitioning out of doing improv, I started telling stories on stage. And I just realized, man, I was a fucking weird kid. And I grew up with all these, like you guys just heard, like I can stand on stage and tell you about, Prozac Paul or Darius, the guy who walks around town with tinfoil wrapped around his head. Like these were real things I grew up with. And I tell these stories on stage and get a reaction. So I knew they were good. I'm like, I'm getting sold out crowds to laugh at this shit. Started writing them down as a book and nobody wanted it. And for years, nobody wanted it. And then there was this agent, small time agent who took me on. He's like, I think there's something here. And he's teaching me how to write a book proposal. And I'm taking all these, I've already been working on these stories for a year and I work on this proposal for another year and a half. And then he shops it around for another year and we get notes from people. I work on it for another year. I think it was a solid, from the time I said, I want this to be a book to when it was actually a book. If I remember right, it was 7 years of working on it and just running headfirst into walls. And I think in that sense, the commitment to, I know this is good. I know this thing has a right to exist. That again just feels to me like being in a church basement on Pleasant Valley Way in West Orange, New Jersey, and buying a 7-inch from a band called One Nature and just realizing these kids are 5 years older than me. It's an actual fucking piece of vinyl. It's an actual thing. Felix Frump has cassettes. They have t-shirts and it's not bullshit. It's not like they drew. It's not like they wrote the name on hand. They got them pressed. They got covers made. They're in sleeves. These are real things. Like you're allowed to make your things. So the more people, always with both that book and with the Chris Gethard show, it's like the more people said no to me, the more I was like, okay, I'm going to double down. I'm going to triple down. I'm going to quadruple down. I'm going to make this thing happen. I really thank God that was kind of the attitude I grew up around.
I'm going to stop the conversation for 1 second and tell you, if you enjoyed this conversation, there's tons more where this came from. For only $5 a month, you can get full episodes with each of our guests for a total of 5 episodes per month. Want to help out with some gas money to get us to the next show? We have merch and more at killedbydesk.com. Now let's get back to the show.
What I want to get to is then you went to Rutgers, this huge university, right? And
Bad call.
Right. So, and I feel like the moment was you tried out for the improv team.
This is deep research. This is because here's the thing. We've also been talking about the Chris Gethard show, and due to journalistic standards, just ignoring the fact that Bill was a part of it from start to finish. one of 3, there were 3 people besides me who can say they were there from the first one to the last one. Bill, Johnny, and Shannon O'Neill. So all the Gethard show stuff, I'm like, yeah, deep cuts. The dad workaholic stuff, I know you talked to my brother. Me not making the improv team freshman year of college, that I don't know that you and I have talked about. I don't know that maybe my brother remembered that, but this is now Nardwuar level.
I'm just saying, like, from what I understand, that could be a turning point here, right? You also didn't make it as editor-in-chief of the high school newspaper. I just feel like there's a doubling down pattern here.
Yeah.
It's like a Michael Jordan
And I
not
want
making
you
his
to
high school
speak
basketball
to.
team moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's funny. Yes, it was formative in many ways. The high school newspaper thing, again, just another thing that I did, and I was on track. I had worked every editor-in-chief. It was like sophomore year, you do this, junior year, you do this, and then some other kid beat me out, and he had never even been on the staff, and I was pissed.
Was that before or after Weird New Jersey, though?
That was before Weird New Jersey.
So did the Weird New Jersey, I'm working for a real publication thing, was that doubling down?
No, that was... The school newspaper thing, if anything, I was like, at that point, I was like giving up. And I was like, I think I'm just going to go to Rutgers. And I had good enough grades and good enough SAT scores that I knew I didn't write an essay on my Rutgers application, if I remember right. It was my safety school. And I got in and I was applying to like smaller, better schools, but I got super fucking depressed, like riddled with depression at the tail end of high school. And I was like, fuck it. I know some people who go to Rutgers. I'll just go there. And I remember my parents being like, what? Like, you got into Fordham, you got into some good schools. Like, and I was like, I just want to go to Rutgers. The newspaper thing, I think, was kind of maybe started some of the depression as far as like an early, like, oh, you publicly didn't get this thing, and everybody kind of feeling like everybody's laughing at me. Nobody gave a shit. But then, yeah, so I got to Rutgers, and that's a deep cut, Bill. So here's what happened.
Good.
Here's what happened with me in comedy. So my senior year, my junior year, this teacher pulled me aside, and she had done some work on the high school musicals, and I was in the chorus of those fucking things, singing and dancing. Like, why am I doing this? I vaguely understand I want to be on stage, but this is what you can do in my school. So I guess I'll be a fucking chorus boy in a production of Evita. What is this? And she pulled me aside. And she was like, had done some choreography in it. And I'm like, why is she talking to me? She goes, take my drama class. I was like, I don't know if that's my thing anymore. She goes, I'll make it worth your while. And because I did it, she later told me that it was because I signed up. She just made the whole thing improv. And all of a sudden it just clicked. Everything clicked. And I talked to her. I was getting so fucking excited. She was like, there's an improv competition that I can enter you in. Me and my buddy went and did that. And I kind of came to life when the rest of shit was falling apart. And I was getting in fights with teachers all of a sudden and giving up on shit. All of a sudden, and I remember her saying to me, like, you're funny and everybody, like, you're a fucking asshole. You're like a wise ass in classes, so you're getting yelled at, but it could actually be like a thing. It could be a useful thing that you do. And she was the only fucking teacher who ever said anything like that to me, where I was like, someone actually sees me, like, this thing I'm proud of is something to be proud of. She's not telling me just to shut up in class. So I got to Rutgers and I had looked up. I was like, I don't know where I'm going to go, but they need to have an improv group. Because that shit saved me. That shit kept my head above water my senior year of high school when I never felt good about anything. So I knew Rutgers had one and I auditioned and I didn't get in and I was devastated. Because now I was like, what the fuck do I do? And I had some friends there. They hung out in a punk house. 11 Robinson Street was this punk house my friends lived in. So I'd hang out there. But then obviously I'm a depressed 18-year-old who's drinking and fucking smoking weed for the first time at this punk house where there's like skinheads hanging out doing pills. And I'm just going way too hard. And it was bad, it was bad. And the worst part, dude, so you used to have to sign up for an email address with your college. That was, I think for most people my age and older, that was how you had an email address. Your first email address probably had a .edu at the end. And I was so certain I was going to be part of the improv group that I made my email address improv@rutgers.eden.edu. And you weren't allowed to change it. So I didn't get voted in. I tried to audition and didn't get in. And my fucking email address had to be improv@Rutgers. And I'm like, all I wanted to do was improv at Rutgers and I can't. And I didn't get in twice. 2 different times I auditioned my freshman year and 2 different times I got shut out. It's funny, the guy who didn't let me in, he wound up being one of my best friends and we lived together for 8 years. When we moved from Jersey to Queens, we both moved together. We lived in Queens for 8 years together. One of my all-time best friends, and I'd always give him shit because once I became like a big shit in the improv world, he still does it. The Magnet Theater, and I'd meet people and they'd be like, oh, you guys have been doing it together since college. Yeah, I'd be like, yeah, this is the guy who wouldn't cast me in an improv group. And he'd always get pissed.
Is this the same guy that lived with you and was okay with not having a working stove?
Yes, that was my friend Jamie, because in Jersey, it's PSE&G, it's electric and gas. So we were paying the electric bill and thought that meant the gas was being paid. And then the gas just shut off one day. And he and I both were like, I never fucking cook. So our stove, I think, was off for probably a solid 2 years. We didn't have a working stove.
Did you have a microwave?
We did have a microwave, yeah. You fucking crushed that, Charlie.
That's okay.
You crushed that callback, Charlie. Kudos to you. You crushed that.
So I have this other thing, another deep cut here. So we were standing on a corner at for 3 hours. This is during the stage Chris Gethard show, and we were brainstorming plans for your 30th birthday.
Oh yeah, that was a Bill show.
Can you can you just briefly go over the points that we were trying to hit for that show?
Wait, was that just me and you brainstorming it?
No, it was me, you, Johnny, and James from Kung Fu Monkeys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that show, when it was at UCB, I would come up with an idea, and I look back and I'm like, I had all these interesting fucked up ideas. They were just kind of pouring out of me. And then I'd meet up with Bethany and we'd go over kind of how the mechanics of the show were going to work. And then I'd fill in the band on what they needed to do. And that was it. That was all the prep we ever did. Even the rest of the cast mostly never knew what was happening. So my 30th birthday show.
It changed after a while.
What's that?
Early on, that's what it was. It changed.
That was
over
when
time.
it was at UCB. And then every successive step it grew. So public access, it became Noah and Drew and JD wrote it with me. And then cable, I was able to hire all these people, which I'm really proud of, but it just kind of swelled and expanded and whatnot.
Well, how many 30th birthdays did you have? I'm not understanding this.
No. We only had one 30th birthday.
Yeah.
But there was going to be a 30th birthday show that Chris originally was planning. And there was a couple of bullet points that you should repeat if you remember.
Yeah. Ultimately what happened was we rented a coffin and I was put in a coffin and I think everyone in the audience was invited to come up and help shovel dirt onto the coffin. If I remember, that's what we ultimately went with.
That's what happened. And they hired
Did you
a
rent that coffin
psychiatrist.
from the Blanks?
I don't know. Where did they get the coffin?
There's a magic and props store called Abracadabra, right on the edge of Union Square in Chelsea. We rented it from there.
I'm a big fan of that show.
I think you'd rent it to have it on your front lawn at Halloween, as part of a scare display. So yeah, we rented a coffin and I think people gave funeral speeches for me. And it was psychologically very fucked up and intense from what I remember. It wasn't that funny.
That was everyone else's idea. I'm asking you what your original idea was when that didn't go that way.
If I remember right, Bill, it's an idea that I pitched a couple times throughout the show's history that no one ever allowed to happen because of true discomfort. Did I want to be crucified on stage?
No, it was close. It was close. What I remember is you wanted to bus the entire crowd to New Brunswick, rent out a punk house, have Naughty by Nature and Uncle Floyd perform.
Yeah.
And then you were going to end it by having a helicopter land and then fake a helicopter crash, and you would fake your own death.
I was going to fake a helicopter crash and fake my own death and then disappear for a year. And I think you were the one who said that. I think, here's what I remember. If I remember right, James and Johnny were I feel like James and Johnny were don't do that. And you were if you're going to fake your death, you have to commit to it. You have to disappear completely for a year. And I feel like the other guys were Bill, don't encourage him. And you were you can't even tell your parents you're alive.
I got the crash part from Charlie.
Kaufman.
Well, that's who it was all a tribute to.
Well, I remember, Chris, I was driving down the road not too long ago, and NPR had a really earnest story on you about how you're touching people with beautiful stories from anonymous people. And it almost seemed like you had an entire different audience from all the comedy stuff that came about because of that.
Yeah, I have a very strange path where around 2016, I had a really good year and all this stuff happened where my podcast kind of blew up unexpectedly. And I was in Mike Birbiglia's movie and that became kind of a surprise indie hit, and Career Suicide happened. And what I was left with was the Chris Gethard show had a very passionate fan base. Beautiful Anonymous has a very passionate fan base, but they're not really comedy fans per se. And Career Suicide attracted new fans and Mike's movie attracted new fans, but none of them are all fans of all of it. I have 3 or 4 distinct fan bases. And if I could get them all on the same page, I'd be doing really well. And as it is, I kind of have stops and starts where I'll do really well for a time because I just can't seem to get them all to just the Venn diagram isn't quite there. But yeah, the Beautiful Anonymous fans don't love comedy. The comedy fans don't love Beautiful Anonymous. It's a weird thing. But I'm very thankful that I have both.
I mean, I feel like Beautiful Anonymous is more Weird New Jersey.
In some ways, I can see that being true of just finding different corners of the world and how people think in them and people doing things you don't expect. I feel really lucky. I kind of feel like that show blew up at the tail end of my childhood and is what is now carried me into my adulthood.
So your childhood ended at 35?
Well, Bill, think about the Gethard show. If that human being is not who I am today. I feel like all of that stuff was like the last vomiting up of the insecurity of my 20s. Like you know, me on public access television, booking a professional kickboxer to literally beat the shit out of me on the air, you know, like multiple episodes where dominatrixes came in and like beat the shit out of me on the air. And like a lot of that was self-hate that was from when I was 13 or 14 years old. And I would actually argue that probably that childhood probably ended around like 33, 34, but then we sold our show. And I feel like, Bill, I bet everybody involved in it a couple of years after getting canceled feels the same way, which is like, if you made a movie about our show, it's the story of a public access show. And then when we got our cable deal, that's the happy ending. But then for some fucking reason, the happy ending lasted 3 more years and 47 more episodes. And by the end, I think all of us were kind of like, we don't need to be doing this like, I don't need to be locked in a cage having 100 pounds of human hair dropped on my head anymore. Like, it's not who I am anymore, but that's what the show was. So yeah, I kind of think that the Gethard show was like the, you know, like all of the fucking insecurity I had and self-hate I had and self-loathing and doubt as a young person. I feel like the Gethard show was me kind of vomiting that up. And then Beautiful Anonymous was the thing that came along and was like, yeah, now here's who you are as like a stable human being who has your head a little bit more together.
I like that caterer we had, though. That's what kept me going.
Dude, people don't even understand the fucking shit happening behind the scenes. I was just telling Laura Stevenson about some of the characters involved at the Gethard show because we were reminiscing about how she became a part of the show. And dude, the caterer, do you remember the time the caterer showed up and it turns out she had all these unpaid fucking parking tickets in New York City? And dude, our caterer shows up, so a meter maid comes by, runs the plates, is like, oh, we finally got her. And I remember hearing about this. I didn't see it for myself, but apparently she's getting physically actually arrested, like cuffs put on her. She's got so many warrants out for these tickets. And our line producer, Jim Sharon, is there with a bunch of interns and he's going, get the ravioli, get the ravioli, everybody. And all these interns are running up to her trunk as the police are trying to tow it away. And they're grabbing like catering trays of fucking brownies and raviolis and zucchinis. Like, that's how our show was operating, even when we had a budget, you know? All kinds of stuff. Bill, I was telling Laura about, and don't name the name, but about how we had a longtime audience member who we had to tell him gently, you're not allowed to come around anymore because you threatened to kill Patrick Kottner, who works on our crew. And he like meant it. I don't know if you know who that was, Bill.
I have a video of him dancing really weird.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stories. And like, people don't know. I don't even know if you know, Bill. There was a guy who worked on the show for a while who went to jail for attempted murder. And we just had to kind of quietly, he hadn't worked on the show in a while, but we heard about that and we were like, what? Like, this is a guy who I've taken long van rides and car rides with. This guy's a murderer? We have murderers who worked on our show? Like, people have no idea how fucked up it got, let alone all the psychos who were just hanging out at the public access studio.
I mean, we had some scary people that, you know, just scared me.
Well, what was weird was so when Little Seizures played, I was sitting in the audience with my wife, and my wife was in Kudzu and the Faggots, so they were on the show too. And we weren't married at the time, but we were sitting there, and I tried to talk to some woman that was sitting a little further down, and she completely blew me up. I was just like, you know, asking about the show or whatever, and I realized I was like, there's a lot of people here that are like the people that like weren't popular in high school but are now dicks to everyone. Like, it's like it was almost a little cliquey in that way, where like I was the dork in this situation with the people who would have been considered dorks in high school.
Well, I really hated that. It took me a long time, you know. By the cable days, I had so much pressure on me and I was under such a grind that I wasn't keeping my eye. I wasn't as connected day to day with the fans like I was in the early days. And when I realized that there had become like a subset of our fans who kind of fashioned themselves the cool kids of the fan base, it really broke my heart, because kind of the whole point was anyone's allowed to wander in here and feel comfortable. And I think on its best days, it was that start to finish. But hearing that there were some kids who were making some other people feel unwelcome, I was like, man, that sucks. And a couple of them are people who I really
hold on. This is Dave we're talking about. Dave has a long history of this. and for no reason, right? I mean, I feel like Dave used to live in my neighborhood and people would like drive by and just yell things at you.
I'm a magnet for that. I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess it's because I'm a big guy.
I think it's your posture.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because I'm big, but I don't seem threatening. I seem like a nice, approachable guy, which some people can take the wrong way. I mean, remember when I had, as a Mets fan.
Bill, do you remember? Here's my one of my favorite things. There was this fucking time we did the public access election coverage in 2012 and 2016. But in 2012, people are coming and going. It's 12 hours long. So I tried to take as few breaks as possible, but every once in a while I needed to just like use the bathroom or clear my head. And there's one time where I was like, I just need like 10 or 15 minutes to get my head together. And for some reason, everyone else was taking a break then as well, except this guy, Dan Klein, comedian, hilarious dude.
Great guy, great comedian.
But he was like, you know, there was like the inner circle of the Gethard Show people, and then there were actors we'd invite on to do bits sometimes, and some of them were kind of frequent. And Dan was a guy who came in very infrequently, and he was a part of things and like a beloved member of the show amongst the fans, but he was not a guy who was there more than once every 3 months, you know? And he winds up hosting. And the guy who's on camera with him, the only two people on camera hosting are Dan and an Asian man named Don, like a man in his 50s named Don. And Don's kind of saying all this weird shit and like laughing at Dan, and Dan's trying to figure out what to make of him. And it's probably a solid 25, 30 minutes that it's Dan Klein and this guy Don. And then finally Dan gets off stage and I was about to go back on. Someone else took over for him. And Dan walks up to me. I'm like, thanks so much for hosting. I really needed a break. And he's like, yeah, it was he's like, it's so funny with your show. He's like, there's so many people involved that like that guy Don, like, I don't know if he's like some comedian I've never met that, you know, from some weird part of the Brooklyn scene or like, is he like a crew member? And I was like, Dan, that's crazy Don. That guy, that's a crazy person. And he was like, what? I was like, damn, that guy.
He just like walked in off the street.
He used to walk in off the street and sit in our audience and ignore that the show was happening and just read paperback books about psychoanalysis. And then I asked about him and I was told that he used to show up for all the shows. And he one time hid in the studio after a show. And when they locked up, he just hung out in the public access studio in the dark all night. And when they got there the next morning, he had locked himself on the roof and he was like screaming and crying for help. Like he was an actual really dangerous person. I was like, Dan, no, that's like an actual crackpot. And Dan's like, are you telling me I was just on live TV, unknowingly hosting it by myself, a show with your name on it for 25 minutes with like a dangerous human being? And I was like, yeah, man. Yeah. And that's just kind of how it went with us for a long time, you know?
I want to go a little bit into your actual like business, right? So like, as far as I understand, you have a really good management team and they've been there for a long time. Like what was the progression to get them to believe in you?
Well, it's just one guy. It's one guy that I will say is the dude who has my back. I wouldn't even say a team. I have a manager. His name's Brian Stern, and I've been with him now for 13 years. And I had an agent back in the day who was they do this thing, these fucking agents in entertainment where they kind of fuck with you and then they kind of don't, and they call it hip pocketing, where it's like they don't sign you, but if you can start to catch momentum on your own, then they will, and they've got their eye on you. And it's this whole like very stressful cat and mouse game that feels like high school. And there was this agent who kind of was dabbling with me, and then anytime I had something coming, I'd email her and be like, can you help me with this? And she'd be like, sure, I'll help you with the contract. And then finally I was like, what do I need to do to just get your full attention? Stop with this like stressful nonsense. And she was like, you need a manager. Like a manager's job is to kind of yell at me on your behalf and keep you on my radar. So let's get you a manager. And she recommended me to this guy. And I went with him and I didn't know if it was going to work. And he had just started his own company. And 13 years later, he's the guy I'm still with. And I'll tell you exactly why. I had that sitcom in 2010. And it bombed. And all my agents were like, okay, that sucks. But you're now in the conversation of people who can be on shows like that. We're going to get you to Los Angeles. We're going to get you on some shows because momentum is momentum and you have it right now. And I turned around and went, actually, I don't think I'm done in New York and I want to do a public access show. And my manager said, great. And those agents fucking stopped paying attention to me. And for years, they acted like they were still working for me and they fucking weren't. And I caught them and I fired them and it was stressful shit. And my agent was like, you want to go do a public access show for 4 years? Go do it. And you got to keep in mind, this guy gets paid because he gets 10% of my money. And I'm telling him I'm going to spend 4 years doing a thing that I'm only going to lose money on. He never.
And he's not going to pay you 10% of that.
No. And he never fucking blinked twice, dude. He always was just like, this is the thing you're supposed to be doing. It's great. He grew up on Long Island. He was an Uncle Floyd fan. He was like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. we're going to make it happen. Stay the course. So anybody who sticks with me through that, I know like this is a person with good intentions who's not out to just be a fucking entertainment industry snake taking his cut based on my hard work. Like this is a guy who I know I can really trust that he has my best interests in mind. And he has stuck with me through times where I spent years literally making him no money. And then there's been 2016, I had that really good year and he got to make some money then. And I'm like, he deserves every penny of it because he effectively protected me and worked for free for years. So that guy is, I would say, like, family in a way. And as far as the rest of my team goes, I've fired every agent. I think I've fired 4 agents at this point, 4 agencies, and I just got no stomach for them. And pretty much everything I've ever gotten, it's because I hustle. So I'm like, why am I giving you assholes 10%? Whereas with my manager, I'm like, I know exactly why I give you 10%. Because when I go off and hustle on something that no one else thinks is going to work, you're like, great, what do you need from me? Let's make it happen. That's hilarious. So yeah, it's one guy.
I heard there's a story about your first manager. I don't know if you tell that one a lot.
Oh, this fucking guy. Oh, well, my first 2 managers. Are you talking about? I
don't know which one. Tell us the better story.
There's good stories about both of them, man. So around 2002, I'd say, this dude starts coming around UCB. And again, this was when no one was getting jobs. Nobody. If somebody showed up in a fucking, commercial for fucking whatever, we'd all flip out and be like, oh, wow, you're making money off of acting? So this guy comes around, he says he's a manager, and it's probably like, I think I remember Kurt Braunohler and Seth Morris. He asked them to work with him. And then I get a call from him one day. And he's like, I saw you in a show last night. He's like, because I was so young then, I was probably 20, 21. And he's like, I saw you in a show, man. You got this fucking all-American kid thing going. I think we could fucking get you some stuff, this and that. And I'm like, all right, man. I sign with him. I'm like, whatever you can do. And so the guy, he'll call me up out of the blue and he'll be like, I got an audition for you tomorrow. And I'm like, all right. And he's like, all right, here's the address you go to and sign in under Top Cat Entertainment. And then the next time he'll call, it'll be like, go to this address, sign in under Avanti Entertainment. And then the next time it'll be like, sign in under fucking Bellissimo Talent. And I'm like, what is your company? Like, what is going on here? This feels fucking shady, And there's a few stories that pop out. There's some really funny ones that Kurt and Seth have. I won't tell their stories. The ones that I remember are, okay, I got 3. One, I show up one day. Keep in mind, I was working at Weird New Jersey at that point. So if I was going to audition, I'd have to take a day off of work and come into the city. And my boss wasn't thrilled, So I couldn't do it that often. So I take a day off of work, come into the fucking city. I go to this audition. He told me it's for a commercial. I get in there and usually you go in and it's other guys with glasses or other guys with freckles. And I walk in, it's just all different types of people. I'm like, what is this? This never happens. And I'm kind of sign in and I'm noticing there's some people wearing like gloves. I'm like, what is going on? And they all know each other and I don't know any of them. And one guy finally comes out and this dude's like, hey man, how's this one? And he's like, oh, it's real simple. Just, it's one plane shot, one reaching into the bag shot. And I'm listening to this. I'm like, what? So clearly these dudes know each other and have seen each other a million times. I turn around to the guy, I go, dude, I'd ask you, what's this commercial for? He goes, oh, it's not a commercial. It's a print ad. And I was like, what's the print ad for? And he goes, Doritos. And I'm like, and when he said like one in the bag shot, what is it? He's like, your hand reaching into the bag. And I'm like, your hand? He goes, yeah, we're all hand models. It's a hand modeling. It's a hand modeling thing for a print ad for Doritos. And now, Bill, you know me well enough to know I have a fucking skeletal condition. I have a genetic condition where my joints are all fucked up and my hands look like little mutant claw hands. I have no top knuckles. This is true. If you ever look at a picture of me with my hands, you'll be like, oh, it's fucked up. And because of this condition, I was born where 4 of my fingers don't have fingernails. So nobody wants to see my fucking mutant hand with cracked fingernails reaching into. It's the most unappetizing thing. So I
really get that your graphics guy used someone else's hand in a graphic.
Yeah, it's like gonna make you fucking throw up. I call this guy up. I'm like, dude, what the fuck, man? You got to tell me it's hand modeling. He's like, sorry. So then the other good one. This is when I finally fired him. He calls me up. And I had gotten one where it was like I almost got some Sprite commercial that was going to shoot in South Africa only. It was only going to show in South Africa. And I almost got that. So I'm like, all right, maybe this guy is sending me on real shit. So he sends me on another one. And I take out for the day of work. And he goes, they're looking for people who play young. So I think that's why I signed you. You look young. Let's do it. So I show up and I go into this fucking casting office and I sign in and I look around and I figure I'm the only one there because the only other people there are like kids with their moms. So I'm like, all right, they must be going into one of the other rooms. But I only see one sign-in sheet and I'm like, what? This is fucking weird. So finally a lady comes out and calls my name. And it's the same room the kids have been going in and out of. And I'm like, no, I'm supposed to be seeing someone else. And I walk in and everybody just stops and looks at me. And they're like, what's going on? And I'm like, my manager sent me on an audition. And they're like, how old are you, man? I'm like, 22. Like, this is the part is for a 9-year-old, man. And I was livid. I called the dude up. I'm like, you motherfucker. What
was the chance he was going to get 10% of this? Like, dude, what was wrong with him?
He was throwing whatever he could against the wall. I mean, if you heard the other guys I named, if you heard their story, they all had stories that were just as insane, if not crazier. And then years ago, I never forget, he called me up. I was on a fucking delivery run for Weird, New Jersey. I was in my van in the parking lot of the Barnes & Noble on Route 3 in West Patterson. And he called me up. He's like, I got an audition for you tomorrow. And I just cut him off. And I never do that. I'm generally polite with people. I cut him off. I was like, nah, man. Nah, I'm not doing that. He's like, what? I'm like, dude, just take me off your list. I'm not doing this thing. I fired him. And then it must have been a solid like 3 years later. Oh, dude, I forgot the best one. That's not why I fired him. I didn't even fire him after the little kid one. Dude. He sends me on an audition and I show up and he's there. And I'm like very green, very young. So I'm like, I don't know, like, is he just like checking in to make sure everything goes well? Or like, did one of his other clients have a problem and he ran down here to take care of it? So I show up, I'm like, hey man, what's up? And he's like, yeah, not much. Did you go in yet? I'm like, no, you gave me my time. It's not until 3:15 or whatever, you know? And he's like, oh, cool. And I finally am like, what are you doing here? And he's like, yeah, I'm auditioning too. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm also an actor, man. May the best man win. And I was like, get the fuck out of here with this, you know? And then years later, I was at another audition and I signed in. And as I went in, he was leaving and he stopped. He's like, don't I know you? And I looked at him. I was like, nah, you don't know me, man. You never knew me. Just keep walking, man. And he looked at me like I was insane. But yeah. I
was told to ask about your involvement in various unions.
What's that?
Involvement in unions.
Well, I mean, I'm a member of 2 unions, but I don't really know any interesting
well, tell your brother he doesn't know what the hell he's
my brother told you to
about.
ask about that, right? That's one of these things my brother asked about, and there's no story there. I'm in SAG, right. I'm in WGA. I don't think there's any particularly interesting shit that's gone down because of that, though.
Oh, I can't win them all.
When I joined SAG, I could have changed my name from Gethard. I could have changed my name and had a stage name, and I stuck with it. And I think that was a pivotal moment in my whole career when I stuck with the Gethard spelling of my name.
Do you feel like you still have stories to tell about your own life, or do you think now it's more morphed into, I mean, obviously you still have stories from what you've told us today, but I mean, do you feel like with Beautiful Anonymous and all those things, like, do you feel more like a channel for other people's stories? Is that what Gethard Show became and what you see yourself doing more in the future?
Well, it's funny because I've kind of crapped out in a way that scares me. Like, I always was good about keeping some balls in the air, right? Like, I'm working on the Gethard Show and then nobody knows it, but I'm also trying to write a book. And then the book is published and I've been working on this show that became Career Suicide. I haven't had too much in the tank lately since the show got canceled. And there's been some times that have been really, very, very much mentally and emotionally tough with that. And my hope was that, I started a new public access show where each week it was kind of like I curated it and brought in a new different young comedian each week to come do stuff. It just didn't work. It didn't click. People didn't watch it. And that's fine. But that was really my hope, was that I could transition more into being like a producer who helped discover young talent. Because not to pat myself on the back, but you look at the people who passed through the Gethard Show. I mean, like Julio Torres wrote at SNL. He has his own HBO show now. He had an HBO special. Joe Firestone wrote at Jimmy Fallon. She's the head writer on Joe Paris show. Like, so many people. Anna Fabrega's on the HBO show. It's her own Julio show. Like, Will Miles has written everywhere. I'm the first person who put Conor O'Malley on TV. The first person who put Joe Paris on TV. Like, you can really go down the list of people who are involved in the Gethard Show. And I think it's a murderer's row of young talent. And I really was hoping that I could become someone who's more behind the scenes and facilitating young talent. And it just hasn't gotten off the ground. And I'm kind of left going, well, what do I do? I'm a 40-year-old dad, and I used to be much more sort of experimental, and I used to have a mental state that I think lent itself towards like more, daring stuff and sort of fucked up and risky stuff. And that's not exactly who I am anymore. So I don't really know what to do moving forward. So I try not to stress too hard.
Yeah, what about, I feel like there was a period there where you were flying to suburban stand-up clubs, you were going to like mornings of radio.
Yeah.
What is that all about? Is that just like learning?
Well, it's stand-up, like at the end of the day, what I really love about stand-up is it's as much as anything, just like music. The more hustle you put into it, the more safe you are, and if you want, we all know with bands, if you want to be out on the road and you want to be hustling t-shirts and you're willing to do that, a ludicrous number of nights in a year, you can survive. That's how you can get by if you sell enough t-shirts, With stand-up, I feel like it's the only thing I have that's purely self-determined. TV stuff, TV executives come in, they get in the way. Even Beautiful Anonymous, I hope it never goes away, but I'm on a contract, it could go away. I'd have to recover and figure out how to keep it going on my own. But stand-up, if I show up and I can get a laugh and I can sell some tickets, nobody can fuck with that. So I've put a ton of work in. And then it's also one thing that was always beautiful for me that I don't think anybody else from the Gethard show ever kind of embraced fully. And there were some people where I really encouraged them to, was, it's easy to get jaded in New York. And it's easy, you get in the grind of the TV show. Oh, there's so much pressure on it with the fucking executives. And it stops being a little bit fun, right? And there's consequences, you're getting yelled at. But then some of my most meaningful experiences with the show, no one else from the show really got to have because, I'll go to Salt Lake City and I'll do stand-up and there'll be like one kid in the line who has blue hair and a nose ring, and I'm trying to sell books and I'm shaking people's hands and I'm going, okay, these are all Beautiful Anonymous fans because I know what they look like, but that's the Gethard show kid. And that's probably the one Gethard show kid in fucking Salt Lake City. And then that kid comes up to me and goes, I was watching your show when I was 16 and it's the one thing that made me not feel like a fucking freak, or made me proud to feel like a freak. Or, I get people now who come up to me who are comedians who I like, comedians in New York who I like, who come up to me and they're young and they go, like, there's a girl named Sarah Squirm who does brilliant, really disturbing stuff, like really funny, but visually really messed up and disturbing and aggressive. And the first time I met her, I was like, oh, I'm a real big fan of the stuff you're doing. She goes, well, I grew up in Long Island. And when I was in high school, I applied to intern at your public access show 3 times. I sent you guys these like crazy emails. I get why you never answered them. So I get to go out and travel the world and kind of still live that like carny lifestyle. And it's all self-determined. It's all a safety net that I get to build. And I get to like meet these people and they come up to me and they tell me that the show meant something to them. And it's a lot different than a room full of like hip Brooklyn kids in New York. It's not the cool kids. It's like, dude, I'll never forget. I went to London and I was doing shows out there. And this kid comes up to me and he's wearing a Hintmaster t-shirt. And the Hintmaster was this character on the show that became this like hit largely because of how half-assed and thrown together it was. And then we wove it into the show and Drew, who played the character, like just made it so funny that it was beloved. But one of the bits was that the character, right after the character debuted, and it was so shitty. And people started calling in going, more Hintmaster, because it was so shitty. I ran home. I had my friend draw up a design for a t-shirt and we made 30 t-shirts and we got them, Eric from Night Owls, made them in Houston, shipped them to me in 6 days. We sold 30 of them. So this guy walks up to me in London and he's wearing a Hitmaster t-shirt. And I go, well, I know you're like an old school for real fan because we only made 30 of those and we only sold them for about 4 days. So you're hardcore. And he goes, actually, I'm not. And I go, well, then how'd you get a Hintmaster t-shirt? And he goes, well, look, dude, he's like, I like your stuff and I always have. And I'm glad I saw the show. But he's like, I got this shirt from a friend of mine who was like diehard Gethard show fan, like lived and breathed, told everybody about the show. He's like, I honestly think that probably half the people in England who know about your show, it's because my friend wouldn't shut the fuck up about it. And he died. He died like a couple of years ago. And I got the shirt and I just know that if you came to England for the first time, he would kill me if I didn't show up. He would just have fucking killed me. So I just want you to know that I really like your stuff and my friend really loved you, man. And it's like, I get to go on the road and I get to do that, And sometimes I go and I play clubs that are really accommodating. Like my favorite venue on earth is Auto Bar in Baltimore and the Colony in Woodstock I love and the Asbury Park Brewery. Like punk clubs, music clubs, and those crowds embrace me. But yeah, I'll also go do the Funny Bone in Syracuse, and I'll also go do the Helium in St. Louis and Wise Guys in Salt Lake City. First of all, it's two reasons. One, if a guy like me can kill in that room, it means I'm working hard, because those crowds are not conditioned for like an emo storyteller comedian. They want setups and punchlines. But two, I kind of feel like it's really important for me to go there because, when I go to the punk club in Baltimore or when I go and do shows in Austin, yeah, I'm going to meet all the Gethard Show people because that's where they congregate. But when I go to fucking Syracuse and two kids come up to me and it's like, it's like a trans person and their partner and they go, your show helped me survive middle school. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, this is not an easy life in Syracuse. And to hear that I got to be a part of how you fucking made it through the bullshit. And then I get to give you a hug and I get to say genuinely, thank you for fucking being a part of it. That's why I go and do the weird, sad clubs in the middle of the country.
Well, see, you get to be someone else's Uncle Floyd, but you get to not be an asshole. And you actually get to help them out and be everything Uncle Floyd wasn't for you.
I mean, I'm not going to say Uncle Floyd was the guy who got me through high school, though. That was more Morrissey and Letterman and those guys. So,
I want to ask a question about, for your show, you seem to get a whole lot of ads. Like there were Subway ads when it started. There were Subway ads like a week before it got canceled. You had Subway ads. How did you get the station to do all that?
I don't know why they went with that. It was wild. I didn't have to ask them. They just went and did that. I was like, this is fucking nuts. But it's pretty embarrassing, like living in Queens and being on the 7 train. And then you go on the elevated track, you just see one of them. And I see all these people looking at me and I'm like, fuck, like, yeah, I'm like, now I'm like famous enough to have a Subway ad, but I'm not rich enough that I don't have to take the 7 train, I'm still taking the 7 train back and forth to my TV show.
Well, there's another good story. I think there was a clear cut between like the Turner marketing department and the budget we had for the show, right? Because we did that television commercial and it seemed like they spent more on the television commercial than the entire show, right?
100%. That was Fusion, I think. Or no, was that the True TV?
No, that was True TV.
That was True TV, yeah. They had that we never got better food and never got better treatment. They sent cars for all of us. It was for the fucking commercial. Send some of that shit for the show, man.
My neighbors are still talking about that black car picked me up. They're still talking. They all circled around it.
Look at that, man. Look at that.
And, no, the other thing is we got there and they're like, oh my God, they brought the set to this commercial. And then like 2 hours later, we realized they rebuilt a copy of the set for the commercial.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was like, you could have just gone and grabbed it.
So it's just, television's weird.
It's really strange and I don't love it. It's funny. I grew up loving TV and loving experimental TV, but they just make it so impossible to do anything 100%. And I don't know if I want to work in TV ever again. If I have to for money and for health insurance, I will. But I think I was put on earth probably in many ways to do the Gethard Show and to do Career Suicide. And I've done them both now. So now I can maybe relax a little bit.
I mean, do you see yourself like pulling a Rick Moranis without the royalty checks?
I mean, if I could go away right now financially, I'd probably just go away at least for a while.
Rent that helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. Make it happen.
What do you mean pull a Rick Moranis? What are you going to shrink your family or something?
No, he just quit. He just quit show business. He's like, forget it. I'm not doing it anymore. Right?
Yeah, he disappeared. He was like, I think his wife died.
He's like, I'm retired at 45 or whatever.
Well, his wife died and he was like, I just want to hang out with my kids.
Would you go get a regular job? Do you think you'd work this hard at it?
I don't know. There's a part of me that's always wanted to just like be the guy who collects tickets on the NJ Transit train. Or I was thinking maybe try to apply for a job, just work in the register at a comic book store. I love comic books. Like, well, not to be condescending, but I had a fucking pitch meeting and I go in and literally everyone there is like 25 or younger. And I'm like, I've been doing comedy since you were legitimately in preschool. I don't want to have to sit here and have to fucking prove to you that I know what's funny. And that's not on them. That's on me. Like that's me being officially 40. I feel like I'm like Morgan Freeman's character in Shawshank when he's like, fuck you, parole board. I know we all know I'm not getting out. Like that scene. because I don't know. It's on me. Like, I'm too burnt out on it to want to play that game anymore. I once had to do a pitch meeting to a guy who had on a neon pink hat and he was a DJ on the weekends. I'm like, I don't have to convince these people that I have interesting ideas. Like, they're different people than I am. And if this industry is built on their opinions, then fuck that, you know?
Well, at least you don't have an agent that's telling you to like start a TikTok channel or something.
No, that's true. I mean, I did recently start a Cameo, so that's sad enough.
I've always wondered about those. Like, do you collect a bunch and then do them all in a row, or do you like do them as they come in? Like, how does that work?
As they come in, I just do them, and it's fine. And it's nice to have a thing where I could connect with fans and pick up a little scratch during the pandemic. So I'm not complaining.
I believe your brother had a little bit more of that Cameo story that he wanted me to pull out that I didn't write a note about because it didn't seem to bother.
Well, I'm sure you're good and genuine about it, but you watch some of them. I see people post them all the time on their Facebook, and they're so excited about it, and they're like, "Look at this!" And it's like it's some like celebrity being like, "Happy birthday," and then they look off camera, John, you know, like, and it's just so like it's sad. It's like not like I would never want someone to do something like that for me. It's like paying for a lap dance.
It's weird, and I'm not totally thrilled that I'm on it, but it's okay.
Would you ever think about opening up your own comic book store? Because Lord knows we need some more of them. They're all closed.
I just don't have it in me to start a business and stress that much. I just want something low pressure. I mean, Bill was there. You can. It's funny because I feel like now we're on the other side of it, and I'm proud of everything we did. But Bill, you saw by the end, it was like I was breaking from the pressure. Everybody knew it.
You don't want to be the boss. You just want to be.
No, I never want to be a boss again. I never want something built around me again.
Let me pitch this. If I opened up a comic book store, would you work it, and would that be successful?
Where would it be? How far from my house?
It'd be in Queens.
Yeah, I can't drive from New Jersey to Queens to work at your comic book store. I'm sorry, Charlie.
You missed him by a year.
Yeah, I lived in Jackson Heights up until 2 months
Jackson
ago.
Heights!
That's where Charlie's from.
I'm from Jackson Heights, but the real Jackson Heights, not the phony one where everybody moved from New Jersey there.
Well, I lived in Woodside for 6 years first, and Astoria for 2 more before that, and Greenpoint for 2. So I didn't go straight from Jersey. What block on Jackson Heights were you in?
94th Street, 34th Avenue.
I was on 78th and 35th.
Yeah, that's the hipster part.
That's the historic district. Show some respect.
Historic district. That historic district is a scam. They only did that because they were knocking down houses and making them into 3-family houses.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
I don't think anybody's hiding that.
Yeah, but then they didn't just take that area, they included all that part in the 70s, so people in the 70s were like, oh, we're from the historic district.
Wait, hold on. We're talking about Jackson Heights. Was it Jack in the Box in Jackson Heights?
Jack in the Box was on Junction Boulevard when I was growing up. And every time
But it's like the only
Jack.
it was the only Jack in the Box in this, like, hemisphere.
Well, that's like that one Little Caesars that's on it's in Astoria.
Yeah, it's like over near the bridge.
Yeah.
But let me tell you why Jack in the Box closed. Because every time you went in there, you ordered your food, they get it, take forever to get it. They used to have this board where they write on it, like a whiteboard with wax crayons, they'd write your order, and then they get your order ready, and as soon as they're about to bring it to you, they'd go and they'd give it to the people in the drive-thru. And when I was a kid, everybody said that the pickles were made of rubber, and if you dropped them on the floor, they bounced.
But we also know that some people got very addicted to the tacos, and then they turned it into what?
Arby's.
Arby's, and then the Arby's sold the
That
Jack
was
in
the
the
only
Box
Arby's in the
tacos.
country that had tacos at the time.
It had Jack in the Box tacos, which are disgusting.
Yeah. No, now Burger King has those disgusting tacos. So you can
Well,
still get them.
at Dave's bachelor party, there was somebody who was so addicted to those tacos, we had to like drive out of the way at 4 a.m. to eat a bunch of them.
Was I too drunk at that point to remember?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sober now, but that was a dark time in the middle of St. Louis.
Cool. I mean, Chris, you mentioned that you have like these 3 fan bases. They don't get together. Which one do you think is going to be most important to your legacy?
Well, it's a very interesting question because I don't know. I don't know how to answer that because I think that I have 3 things that actually mean a lot to me and mean a lot to people. So I don't know which one is going to be that. One thing that I've joked about that I'm really proud of is like, I'm going to have a pretty interesting obituary. And that's a pretty cool thing to say. But I don't know what the lead will be. I don't know which one they'll start with.
Helicopter crashes and Naughty by Nature also killed.
That's it, kids. The gig is up. The cops are here, and your mom is calling jails, hospitals, and all your friends' houses wondering where you've been. Tune in next week for another fascinating, mesmerizing, and absolutely unmissable episode. And be sure to get on the list and follow the boys on social media at Killed by Desk. This podcast is produced by Jesse Cannon, and if you enjoyed this conversation, there's tons more where this came from. For only $5 a month, you can get full episodes with each of our guests for a total of 5 episodes per month. Want to help us out with some gas money and to get us to the next show? We have merch and more at KilledByDesk.com.